What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Marvel Snap video. Today I wanted to take a look at the Spotlight caches for the month of October. Wanted to take a look at the cards, what's in each Spotlight cache, and let you know what I think if you want to open up the caches, spend your tokens, save your caches, which cards to pick up, which cards to skip. So let's get into it. So starting off, this is coming from Snap Fan, so shout out Snap Fan. And real quick as well, it's generally recommended that Series 4 cards you purchase with tokens, since they're only 3,000 tokens. And Series 5 cards are 6,000 tokens, so it's generally recommended that you purchase Series 4 cards with tokens and try to open Series 5 cards with Spotlight caches, because tokens are very, very scarce and very hard to come by these days. But without further ado, let's get into it. So this is the Spotlight cache for this week right now. We got Thanos, X-23, and Echo. Now, for me personally, this is a skip, and I would probably recommend that you skip this as well, unless you have none of these cards. If you have none of these cards, then yeah, maybe it's worth opening up, because you're probably gonna get, you're pretty much guaranteed, right, to get like at least one new card if you open up 2 caches. So the reason I would say most people skip those, because Thanos is not really relevant in the current meta. That might change because, he is a quote-unquote big bad, and I feel like they like to adjust the big bads quite frequently. At least with Galactus, we saw a few high evo nerfs. Still waiting on a Kang rework, however. But right now, Thanos currently not very present in the meta. That can change. But as of right now, in the most recent patch, there was no change to Thanos. So I don't really think Thanos is worth it at the current meta. And then we have X-23. This is another card that's kind of like, it's okay. I've seen people that are pretty high on this card, like in Destroy decks. Her ability does work with Destroy or Discard. I personally would not recommend playing in Discard. I don't think it's very great in Discard. In Destroy, it definitely can work, however. But me personally, I'm not a really big fan of this card. If you really, really like playing Destroy, then, go ahead and try and open up a Spotlight cache for X-23. But I don't think it's required for Destroy. Like, you could just play something else, right? Like, you could play Yondu for Death. You could play Deadpool, Nova. You could just play Wolverine instead. Like, I wouldn't say, like, this is a core Destroy card, in my opinion. Like, maybe some people might disagree with me. Like, no, you need this card in every Destroy deck. You just don't, in my opinion. Like, and personal experience, I actually completed an Infinity Conquest last season with the Deadpool deck, and it was not running X-23. So, in my opinion, this card is okay, but it's not required for a Destroy deck, and definitely not required for discard decks. Then we move on to Echo. I'm actually a big fan of Echo. I think this card is actually really cool. If you are unaware of her ability, she is a 1/2. After your opponent plays an ongoing card here, remove its ability. So this is one of those cards that's kind of meta dependent, sort of like Super Scroll in a way. When there was a lot of ongoing in the meta, like Patriot Super Scroll was very relevant because he was copying Patriot, he was copying Blue Marvel, he was copying Devil Dino. Echo is kind of a meta-dependent card as well. If there are a lot of ongoing cards in the meta, then Echo will, in turn, see more play. But the fact that she is a 1 cost means she is vulnerable to Killmonger. Even Elektra as well, although Elektra doesn't see a ton of play. That 1 cost just kind of hurts her a bit. I kind of would say if she was 2, maybe she would see more play, but the 2 cost slot in Marvel Snap is very, very competitive, so I'm not sure how true that may be. But I'm a fan of this card. I think she's fun. I think she's good, but I don't think she's really relevant in the meta, like, right now. And again, kind of similar to X-23, like, she's not really required. Like, you can just run Enchantress instead. Although they're 2 different cards, they kind of have the same job in the sense that they are negating your opponent's ongoing effects. The thing is, Echo is more of a surprise card. Like Enchantress, Enchantress doesn't see a lot of play right now, but at least she's more expected than Echo. So I guess Echo does have some of that surprise value, but it may be a little bit harder to set up the Echo since you have to play it before your opponent plays their cards. But then again, on the upside, that kind of lets you know, like, okay, my opponent, if they're playing like a Devil Dino deck, okay, my opponent's not going to play Devil Dino in the Echo lane. Or if they're playing Professor X, okay, my opponent's not going to play Professor X in this Echo lane. And that can kind of give you some information as to, where to invest your power in out of the 3 locations, right? So I think Echo does have some use cases to her, but she is not required by any means. So overall, I'm going to say this Spotlight week is a skip for me, especially since there's no new cards in the first Spotlight cache of the season, because all the other cards this season look pretty fun to play with. Now, the Spotlight variants, this is all subjective, really, right? Like, it really depends on what variants you like. So I'm not going to touch on the variants too much, since that's really just really more subjective and personal opinion. But as far as these cards go, I would recommend you skip the Spotlight caches for this week, unless you have none of these cards. But even then, I would say maybe probably just save for the new cards anyway. So overall, I'm going to say just skip for this week. And then we move on to the next week, which is October 9th through the 16th. First off, we got Man-Thing. Man-Thing, now he is the only Series 4 card this month, which means you can purchase him for 3,000 tokens. His ability, he's a 4/5 ongoing 1, 2, and 3 cost cards here have -2 power. So the obvious synergy here is with Luke Cage. You play him with Luke Cage, your opponent's cards get the -2 power, but your cards don't. Overall, this might be, I would say Man-Thing and Black Knight is the one we'll talk about in a little bit. I think Man-Thing and Black Knight are probably going to be the 2 weaker cards of the season. But with that being said, I'm actually pretty excited for Man-Thing. I think this can be a very powerful ability with Luke Cage. You can maybe do like an ongoing deck, right? Like you play Luke Cage on turn 2, you play Cosmo on turn 3 to protect your Luke Cage from Rogue or Enchantress. And then on turn 4, you play Man-Thing again behind the Cosmo to protect it. And that can be a very powerful ability if you're protected by Cosmo. But then again, you can get hit with Echo, so maybe more people will start playing Echo. Who knows? But Man-Thing, personally, I think this is going to be a fun card to experiment with. And then other cards in the Spotlight cache, we have Silver Samurai. Silver Samurai is a pretty decent card. He's not like a meta game changer or anything like that, but he's a decent card that you want to fit into those mid-range like discard decks that either play like the Black Cat Ghost Rider package, or also like the Black Bolt Stature package, or you can play him in like traditional Apocalypse discard as well. So I think Silver Samurai is a pretty decent card. He's a decent card. And then moving on to Lady Deathstrike. I can't comment too much on Lady Deathstrike because I do not own this card, but she doesn't really see a lot of play right now, so I don't think she's very good. Maybe that can change. Maybe there's something we haven't discovered yet with maybe some Elsa Bloodstone shenanigans. You can buff her up with Elsa Bloodstone, but then you destroy your own Elsa Bloodstone in the process, so maybe it's not worth it. But yeah, I would say Lady Deathstrike, not very good. Not very good. Silver Samurai can be decent in some mid-range deck lists, and Man-Thing, I would say go for it with the tokens. I would say go for it with the tokens because he's going to be 3,000. So honestly, I think he'll be worth the 3,000. If he was Series 5, 6,000 tokens, I would say nah, just pass. But for 3,000 tokens, I would say go ahead and pick up Man-Thing. I think this card might be a little bit better than people are giving it credit. And I'm not saying it's gonna be an amazing card or anything like that, right? Like it's kind of like Silver Samurai. Like Silver Samurai is a good, decent card, but he's not breaking the meta. He's not deck defining or anything like that. Maybe Man Thing will be deck defining, who knows? But I would recommend you pick up Man Thing with tokens. As far as Spotlight caches, if you don't have Silver Samurai is a Series 5. So I would say if you don't have Silver Samurai, then probably, yeah, you can maybe open up some caches to try and get Silver Samurai and Man Thing. But Lady Deathstrike, if you get Lady Deathstrike, that kind of sucks, right? Me personally, I'm probably going to open up caches because I don't own Lady Deathstrike and I do want to get Man Thing. But I would say probably spend your tokens on Man Thing. If you have a ton of caches saved up, maybe go for it to try and get Silver Samurai if you don't own him already. But there are I think the last Spotlight cache is going to be really good here. So overall, I would say pick up Man Thing with tokens if you are interested in playing this card. Then we move on to October 16th to October 23rd. We have Black Knight, which is a 1/2. After you discard a card, add the Ebony Blade to your hand with that card's power once per game. And if we take a look at Black Knight and the Ebony Blade, where is it here? It's a 4/0. It's a 4/0. So it does have some Zabu synergy there, being a 4 cost. However, it does get countered by a Shadow King, right? Because the base power is 0. So Black Knight is an interesting one. And the fact that he's also paired with Stature and MODOK just makes this like the discard week. So me personally, I'm a discard gamer. I enjoy playing a discard a ton. If you have watched my channel at all, I've done a ton of videos on discard decks. However, the thing with Black Knight is I don't think he fits into the traditional Apocalypse discard because the 1 cost is kind of awkward. It's like after you discard a card, add the Ebony Blade to your hand with that card's power. So usually it's like, let's say you play Black Knight on 1, turn 2 you play Colleen to discard a Swarm, then you have a 4/3. That doesn't feel very good. Now maybe it can work, and maybe you do like Black Knight turn 1, Mobius on 2, Lady Sif turn 3 to discard the Apocalypse, and the Blade turns into, I'm not sure if it would be 8 power or it would be 12 power. I'm not sure if it would count its power before or after Apocalypse discarded. But my point being, this can maybe work in traditional discard with Apocalypse, but it's probably not going to be very consistent. So yeah, this one's kind of an interesting one. And then Stature, the Black Bolt Stature deck has kind of fallen out of the meta. It's just being beat like by points by other decks right now, especially like bounce decks that are running Kitty Pryde, Angela, and Elsa Bloodstone right now are just outputting an insane amount of points. So I think the Black Bolt Stature deck is pretty irrelevant as of right now. And MODOK is very good in discard decks. Like that's the thing. He's very good at what he does, which is discarding your hand for Apocalypse decks or Hela decks, right? Or some other Dracula shenanigans you might want to do. So overall, if you're a discard gamer, I don't know. I guess I would say if you really, really like playing discard, like you love playing discard, and you don't own Stature or MODOK or both, then go ahead and open up Spotlight caches. But if you're really conservative on your caches, I would say you can go ahead and skip Black Knight. I don't think he's going to be that good. Of course, it's hard to say. It's hard to say, right? I thought Loki was going to be trash, and he turned out to be freaking amazing. But early impressions, I think Black Knight is just going to be kind of a mid card. Maybe he'll probably work better in mid-range discard decks like the Black Bolt Stature package, or a Black Cat Ghost Rider, or maybe even like a Helicarrier deck. Maybe that could work too. But I think it just feels kind of awkward, right? Like it's a lot of power. Like his ability can be a lot of power, but it's extra steps, right? because you can discard like an infinite, infinite, my bad. You can discard the infinite, which is 20 power. You get the blade added to your hand, which is a 420, which is pretty nuts. 420, funny number. But then again, that blade could just get killed by Shang-Chi, get reset by Shadow King. And it takes a little bit of setup, right? It's not a very clean interaction. It's not always going to be consistent. So overall, I would say skip this week. I wouldn't spend tokens. I would not spend tokens since he's going to be a Series 5. So he's going to be 6,000 tokens. I would not spend tokens on Black Knight. Overall, I'm thinking this week is a skip. And then moving on, we have Nico Minoru from October 20th to October 30th. Now, Nico Minoru is a pretty wild card. If you're not aware of what she does, on reveal, after you play your next card, cast a spell, and she has a 1/2 stat line. The spell changes each turn, and these are all the spells. So she's gonna after you play your next card, cast a spell, and it's gonna be changing every turn, and the spells don't repeat. Glenn confirmed that in the Discord, I believe. But these are all the different spells that you can get, which is pretty nuts because we don't have a lot of cards in Marvel Snap that are like this. Like Snow Guard was kind of like this, the old Snow Guard, and Thanos adds the 6 Infinity Stones to your deck. But this is a very unique card in Marvel Snap, and I think it's going to be really fun to play. These are all the spells. Just going to go off them real quick. First one, on reveal, after you play your next card, it becomes a demon. Next one, after you play your next card, destroy and draw 2 cards. This one's actually very powerful because there are not a lot of abilities within Marvel Snap that let you just draw cards. And drawing 2 cards, like that's very powerful. That is very powerful. Next one, after you play your next card, move it 1 location to the right. Kind of like opposite of Iron Fist, could be good in movement. After you play your next card, give it +2 power. After you play your next card, replace that card's location. So I'm assuming this is like a Scarlet Witch or Reality Stone type of effect. And then the next one, after you play your next card, add a copy of it to your hand. After you play your next card, double this card's power. So this card looks insanely fun, right? This card looks insanely fun. And Kitty Pryde, even though she did get nerfed, she is an absolute staple in the current meta, especially with Elsa Bloodstone. So if you have been playing Marvel Snap for a while, you got Kitty Pryde for free. But if you are a newer player and you don't have Kitty Pryde, then just Nico and Kitty Pryde alone, I would say this is absolutely worth opening Spotlight caches for. And I didn't even talk about Phoenix Force. Phoenix Force is I want to say it's a little bit underrated, but actually it's not anymore because it's starting to see more play. But Phoenix Force probably was a little bit underrated for a little bit, and now it's gaining more popularity. And I think Phoenix Force is actually a really cool card to play with. I think it's really fun, and I think it's a good card. I think it is a good card. So this week is like this is definitely like open up Spotlight caches. I think Nico Minoru is going to be amazing. If you don't have Kitty Pryde is amazing with Elsa Bloodstone. And if you don't have Phoenix Force is it's a very unique card. Like, it only works in very specific decks, whereas Kitty Pryde and Nico Minoru are probably going to be more like universal cards that you can fit into multiple decks. Phoenix Force is a more niche card, but with that being said, I think it's still a good card. But overall, this week, I'm going to say go ahead and open up Spotlight caches for this week. And then we move on to, which I believe this is the last one, October 30th to November 6th. We got Werewolf by Night. He's a 3/3. After you play an on-reveal card at another location, move there and gain +2 power. I think this card is going to be nuts. Other than Elsa Bloodstone, I think this is going to be the strongest card out of all the new cards. Elsa's probably still stronger, but this ability is pretty nuts. First off, he's a 3-cost card. Fits with Silver Surfer. Second, after you play an on reveal, he's going to activate his ability. And his ability is on reveal. Like, you don't even need to play a deck focused on reveal abilities like to use him, right? Because naturally a lot of cards in Marvel Snap have on reveal abilities. It's pretty nuts. If you activate it once, he's a 3/5. You activate it twice, he's a 3/7. And 3/5 on its own, that's premium stats. That is premium stats, a 3/5. You go to 3/7, he's competing with Maximus. Now, once he gets to 3/9, that's very high stats for 3 costs. But then he is put into Shang-Chi range, so it kind of becomes that a cat and mouse game. Like, okay, I want to buff him, but how high do I want to buff him? Do they have Shang-Chi or do they not? But also, with the move synergy, he's going to synergize with things like Kraven, right? Or maybe like he's going to fit into the Silk deck, and he activates Miles Morales. I think this card is going to be fun. I think this is going to be a really good card. And speaking of the Silk package, Silk is in this week's Spotlight caches, and Silk is probably definitely one of the best 2-cost cards in the game. 2/5 stat line is very, very good. We've seen Silk be relevant in the meta for I think a little over a month now, maybe 2 months. I'm not quite sure, but I really like playing those Silk movement type of decks. I think they're a lot of fun, and 2/5 is just really good stats, right? It buffs up your Kraven, activates your Miles Morales. Silk is an incredibly fun card to use if you don't have her already. And then we got Ghost Spider. Ghost Spider is another card I think people were sleeping on a little bit, kind of similar to Phoenix Force, but I think more people are starting to catch on to Ghost Spider. Like, you don't necessarily have to play Ghost Spider in a movement deck, but you can, and she definitely works there, right? She's kind of even like a better Iron Fist, in my opinion, because she can move to any location, right? As long as you can play her on those locations, whereas Iron Fist only moves a card to the left. However, you can play her in different decks. I've seen people play her in the Phoenix Force decks. I've even seen some people do some crazy shenanigans where they Ghost Spider a Nimrod into their own Kingpin to destroy the Nimrod, which is pretty funny. I actually use Ghost Spider in my Deadpool deck that I use for Infinity Conquest because sometimes maybe you play a card you want to get destroyed, like Deadpool or Wolverine, and your opponent plays an Armor or a Cosmo. Normally, you'd say, okay, I'm screwed. I lose. I retreat. But sometimes Ghost Spider can get you out of a jam. They can pull that card. They can pull the Deadpool or the Wolverine outside of that location with the Armor or the Cosmo, pull it to another location, and you can destroy it and keep on doing your thing, right? So Ghost Spider is, I don't want to say a movement card. It's more of a utility card. So it can fit into multiple decks, but it is a very niche card. Not exactly a niche card. Is it niche or niche, by the way? I don't know if I'm saying it right. Let me guys know. I'm very bad with English, but Ghost Spider has more uses than just movement decks. Is basically the point. What I'm trying to make here. So overall, I would say open Spotlight caches for this week. I think this is a really good package here. Like not only is Werewolf by Night on his own it just looks like a really good card, but all these cards synergize together, right? Like, you have movement synergy here with the Silk, with the Ghost Spider, and all of these cards are Series 5, I believe. SnapFan says it's Series 5. Actually, yeah, I don't think, because Ghost Spider was a Season Pass card, I don't think it's dropped because there hasn't been series drops in a long time. So all these cards are Series 5. So I would say definitely open up Spotlight caches for this week. And again, variants are subjective, but I really like the Spotlight variants in the caches for this week. So once more, that is it. But let's do a quick recap through the weeks here. So first off, this week, Thanos X23 Echo, I'm going to say pass. October 9th through the 16th, I would say pick up Man-Thing with tokens since he's going to cost 3,000 tokens. Unless maybe you don't have Silver Samurai or Lady Deathstrike, or you don't have either, and for some reason you really want these cards, then sure, go ahead and open it. But I would say just pick up Man-Things with tokens. That way you just spend the 3,000 tokens and save your caches for the Series 5 cards. And then October 26th through 23rd, I'm gonna say pass. I don't think Black Knight is gonna be that good. Stature Black Bolt, not very relevant in the meta right now. And MODOK is a good card, but he's only good in very specific decks, right? Like Hela decks or Apocalypse decks. And then October 23rd to October 30th, I'm going to say open up Spotlight caches. Nico Minoru seems like a very fun card, very unique card. Kitty Pryde is very, very good with Elsa Bloodstone. Unless Elsa gets nerfed, maybe she will, who knows. But until then, Kitty Pryde with Elsa Bloodstone is pretty broken right now, I would say. And Phoenix Force is a solid card as well. So open up Spotlight caches for this week. And then again, Werewolf by Night week, October 30th to November 6th. I would say open up caches. Werewolf by Night looks really good. Silk is good. And Ghost Spider is just a good utility card. So that is it, guys. Thank you so much for watching and sticking with me that entire time. Sometimes maybe I get a little bit into my thoughts too much, and maybe I'm not the best at explaining things, but I try to lay my thoughts out there and relay it to you guys as best as I can. But anyways, let me know what you think about these Spotlight caches. Let me know which cards you are going to try and pick up. Let me know if you're trying to pick up any of these variants. I actually really like this Ryan Gonzalez Silver Samurai variant, so I might open Spotlight caches for this week, me personally, but for the general people, I would recommend picking up Man-Thing with tokens. But yeah, some of these variants are pretty cool. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you. Let me know if you want to see more videos from me going over Spotlight caches. I think this was like the first time I ever did this type of video. But yeah, I like talking about the Spotlight caches and the cards, and whether you should pick them up or not. So that's it for okay. That's it for real this time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate you, and see you in the next one. Later.